Everybody, Brian Tro coming to you with your fly fishing forecast. The date for today is Monday, February 27th. So there's a lot to get to. The spring-like weather continues. This February has been unbelievable. It's been quite a bit like March. One day, maybe 2 days of cold, and then tons of wind leading up to that, tons of wind on the backside of that, leading to 50s and 60s, which is kind of crazy. We've had a lot of nights above freezing. And of course, the warmer weather has made for more comfortable weather for people to get out and enjoy the streams and not have frozen guides and frozen fingers. But it's also made life a lot easier on the trout. Harsh winters can be really tough, especially up in the mountains on our brook trout, when the fish are trapped underneath ice sometimes for a month or more. So obviously, any time where their metabolism's a little bit higher and they have the ability to feed, they're going to take advantage of that. So that's where we'll start today, is up in the mountains, particularly east of here in the Blue Ridge. The bugs have already started coming off. We had some of our guides and some customers out last week fishing the east slope of the Blue Ridge, and there was quills popping off, little blue duns, the early season caddis, the granums, the little black caddis, they're hatching, particularly on milder days and particularly in the warmer hours of the day, later on in the afternoon. So the fish are already keying into them. It doesn't take too many of those hatches and too many of those bugs to show up in even reasonable numbers before the brook trout will start keying in on them and eating them regularly. So dry droppers are like really the best way to fish. Let the fish tell you whether they're looking up or not. So small nymphs, hare's ear nymphs, pheasant tail nymphs, nothing too fancy. They're not being overly selective this time of year. And just make sure that your nymph, if you're fishing a dry dropper, isn't going to drown your dry fly over and over again. But that's a great way to get going up in the mountains, to kind of seek and find and see. Let the fish tell you whether they're willing to go up or not. If you've been fishing all morning and catching them on the dry fly and nobody's touching the nymph, snip that thing right off and just enjoy some dry fly fishing. So I think that this week we're looking at more rain. It's raining right now. They're calling for more rain, potentially like Thursday into Friday morning. So we just keep getting these regular shots. We're not flooded. We're not above average, but we're in really, really good shape, particularly if you think back to the droughty weather we had coming out of the summer. So that's the good news, is mild weather is good for the fish and the fishing, and regular rainfall is good for the fish and the fishing. They have everything they need. They're going to have, with these shots of rain, it brings cover with riffles and broken water. It brings much needed food, gets washed in, and then of course good oxygen levels this time of year. So get out there, find one of these 55-degree days where the wind's not blowing, and get out there and enjoy some brook trout fishing. It really is like March-like conditions have been existing all through February. So moving downstream in the drainages a little bit, you've got a lot of our delayed harvests across the state. You've got Back Creek delayed harvest, and the North River delayed harvest, and Passage Creek delayed harvest. And these places are a lot of fun to fish in the spring. Remember that around June they open up. The beginning of June is when they open up for harvest. So we've got several months here in the spring to really enjoy them. And the state will, typically opens them in the fall with a stocking, supplemental stockings typically throughout the winter, and then one more in the spring. So you've got kind of in those delayed harvests, you'll have a combination of fish that were just put in, that are trying to clue in, trying to find their spot in the hierarchy. And then you've got fish that have been in there for months and months, and they're very keyed in. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it this long. So those delayed harvests are managed that way on purpose. They'll be good fishing well and have good numbers and head count in them right up until June. And then a lot of those streams just start to get too warm in our summer months, which is why the state manages them to open up for harvest. So check out those delayed harvests over the next few weeks. They're going to be really, really fishing well, especially as our water temps continue to slowly climb. Down even further on our spring creeks, Mossy Creek and Buffalo Creek and Beaver Creek and our spring influence streams, they've been fishing pretty well this winter. The water table is rebounding, and as the water table fills back up, those streams will have sustained long, good flows going in through the spring. Fishing on cloudy and overcast days like today are definitely very helpful. There's not a lot of relief from the wind on some of the streams because they flow through pastures, a lot of them. And so a lot of times you've got to just kind of be careful and mindful of the wind. A little bit further down, fishing on the main rivers, the Shenandoah, the James, the muskie fishing's been really good. We had that big bump last week, but things have kind of balanced back out. And so the water levels, check your gauges, but the water levels are quite good. We're still catching a smallmouth here and there. We're not targeting them too much just yet. Most of our trips have been out just for muskie. And when we catch a big smallmouth or largemouth, it's kind of like bycatch. It's just a nice gift on a quiet day of muskie fishing. So we'll have more on the smallmouth as we get just a tad bit warmer. Next month, things will start to ramp up a little bit more. But right now, you really should focus on your cold water fisheries because that's where a lot of the action is. And like I said, everything's in great shape heading into spring. We'll update you weekly on the bugs. But for right now, keep an eye on your quills, red quills, quill gordons, blue duns, little black caddis. And then, of course, the nymphs that imitate those for the mayflies are quite simple. Pheasant tail nymphs, hare's ear nymphs. Attractors always work too. Brook trout love color, so if you're not having a lot of luck on your natural bugs, put on something with a hot spot, something with pink on it, something with orange on it, and a lot of times that'll turn them on, especially on a bright day. So that's going to be about it for this week. As always, if you have questions, you need some new places to fish, you're trying to find some new water, you need to know, what's biting where, give us a call, email us, or our favorite, stop by and see us. See you next week.